The rain hadn't stopped since morning. It felt as if the heavens themselves were mourning with me. Black umbrellas dotted the cemetery like bruises, people whispering condolences I barely heard. My husband, Daniel, had always joked that he'd die before me because he couldn't handle being alone. I never thought the universe would take that as a challenge. He'd been gone a week. A car crash, they said. Instant death. No witnesses. Just a burnt vehicle and an official report that left too many questions unanswered. Daniel had been a software engineer, always cautious, never reckless. The idea of him speeding on a rainy night didn't sit right with me, but grief has a way of silencing logic. As the priest's voice droned on, I stared at the coffin, polished oak, too small to contain a lifetime of shared dreams. My fingers trembled as I clutched the rosary he'd given me on our 5th anniversary. Until death do us part, he'd whispered that day. After the service, people approached me. His coworkers, old friends, even his estranged sister, Mara, whose crocodile tears didn't fool me. Everyone seemed to know something they weren't saying. When the crowd thinned, I stood alone before the grave. The air felt heavy, like a secret pressing against my chest. That's when my phone buzzed. One new message, the number was blocked. My vision blurred as I opened it. Daniel, I am still alive. Trust no one. My heart stopped. My knees nearly gave way. I read it again. The name, the words, the impossible. Daniel was dead. I saw the coffin. The police confirmed it. But the message, it was his writing style, his phrasing. My husband's voice echoed in my mind. Trust no one. A chill raced through my spine. Around me, the cemetery was quiet, except for the wind. Someone was watching me. I could feel it. I turned, scanning faces, but everyone was gone. Only Mara lingered at a distance, her eyes unreadable. I hid the phone in my pocket. If Daniel was alive, someone had lied. Someone close. And I was about to find out who. I spent the night staring at the message, my phone glowing like a ghost in the dark. Every rational thought screamed it had to be a cruel prank, but my gut said otherwise. Daniel had a way of phrasing his words that no one else could mimic. That clipped tone, the slight overuse of periods. It was him. I texted back, if this is you, prove it. No response. Minutes turned to hours. I sat in our bed, my bed now, surrounded by traces of him. His cologne still lingered on the pillow. His wedding band sat on the nightstand, where the police had returned it after identifying his body. Finally, just before dawn, another message. Daniel, check the safe. Behind the photo, I froze. There was a small safe in his study, hidden behind a framed photo of us from our honeymoon. I'd never opened it. Daniel had always brushed off my questions with a smile. Just boring paperwork, he used to say. I ran to the study, heart pounding. The photo came off easily, revealing the steel door. I entered our anniversary date, 0528, the code he used for everything. Click. Inside were stacks of cash, a USB drive, and a sealed envelope with my name on it. I tore it open. Inside was a note, written in Daniel's handwriting. If you're reading this, something went wrong. Don't go to the police. Don't trust Mara. And whatever happens, don't let anyone know I contacted you. I sank to the floor, shaking. Mara, his sister. Why her? Suddenly, headlights swept across the window, a car pulling into the driveway. It was 5 a.m. I peeked through the curtain, a black sedan. 2 men in suits stepped out, not police. I grabbed the USB and cash, shoved them into my bag, and bolted for the back door. As I slipped into the cold morning mist, one thought echoed in my mind. Daniel was alive, and someone wanted me dead. The fog outside wrapped around me like a shroud. My hands trembled as I fumbled with the car keys. I had parked Daniel's old sedan behind the garage, a habit he'd always teased me about. Paranoid as ever, he'd laugh. Maybe he was right. Maybe my paranoia was the only thing keeping me alive now. The men in suits walked to the front door, scanning the property. One of them carried something metallic. A gun? I didn't wait to find out. The car roared to life, and I drove off with my headlights off until I reached the main road. My heart raced. I had no plan, no destination, just Daniel's warning echoing in my mind. Trust no one. I drove until sunrise, stopping at a gas station outside the city. My reflection in the restroom mirror startled me. My eyes were bloodshot, my face pale. I barely recognized myself. I took out the USB drive from my bag and turned it over in my hands. What could be on it? Daniel was a software engineer. Maybe he'd discovered something he shouldn't have. When I came out, a woman was standing by my car. Blonde, smiling faintly. Leah, right? I froze. Do I know you? She shook her head. No, but I knew Daniel. My stomach turned cold. Who are you? She leaned closer, whispering. He told me to find you if things went wrong. My name's Clara. She handed me a slip of paper with an address scribbled on it. Meet me here tonight. Don't bring your phone. They're tracking it. Before I could respond, she walked away, disappearing into a passing truck's shadow. I looked down at the address, a warehouse on the outskirts of town. Who was Clara? Another lie? Another trap? But she knew Daniel's name, and if he trusted her enough to send her to me. As the sun set, I made my decision. I would go, because whatever Daniel had uncovered, it was worth killing for, and I wasn't about to die without knowing why. The warehouse stood silent at the edge of the city, its walls streaked with rust and graffiti. I parked 2 blocks away and walked the rest of the distance, clutching my bag. Inside, the air smelled of oil and dust. A single light flickered overhead. Clara? I called. Footsteps echoed. Then she appeared. The same woman from the gas station, her face half hidden by a hoodie. You came, she said softly. I need answers, I demanded. Where's Daniel? She hesitated. He's alive, but not safe. My knees almost gave out. Where is he? I can't tell you that, she said. Not yet. He found something about the company he worked for, TechCore. They're running a covert data project for a private military group. When he tried to expose them, they staged his death. I struggled to process her words. So the crash wasn't an accident, she finished. They burned a body and called it his. Now they're after you because he encrypted something, and only you can unlock it. The USB? She nodded. He used your birthday as a key. He knew they'd never suspect you. The sound of engines outside made us both freeze. Clara ran to the window, peering out. They found us. She turned to me, eyes sharp. Run, Leah. Now. I bolted toward the back exit, clutching the USB like my life depended on it. Because it did. Gunshots cracked the air. Clara shoved me through the door and slammed it shut behind me. I heard her scream once before everything went silent. Tears stung my eyes as I ran into the darkness, heart pounding. Daniel was alive, but people were dying for him, and somehow I was the key to everything. I drove aimlessly for hours, shaking. Clara's scream wouldn't leave my mind. She had risked her life for me, for Daniel. By dawn, I found a roadside motel and checked in under a false name. The clerk barely looked up. Perfect. I locked the door, pulled the curtains, and set up my laptop. My hands were trembling as I inserted the USB. A password prompt appeared. I typed my birthday, 0817. The screen flickered, then rows of encrypted files filled the display. Project reports, bank transfers, private correspondence. I clicked on one marked Project Aegis. Lines of classified documents unfolded. My blood ran cold. TechCore wasn't just developing software. They were building surveillance systems for governments worldwide, monitoring private citizens under the guise of national security. Daniel had found evidence they were selling access to criminal networks and politicians. A chat notification popped up on my laptop. Unknown. You shouldn't have opened that. I slammed the lid shut, breathing hard. Moments later, the motel phone rang. I didn't move. It rang again. I picked up, whispering, "Hello?" A familiar voice answered. "Leah, it's me." My throat tightened. "Daniel?" "Yes." "Listen carefully. You're not safe there. They tracked the signal." "Leave now," I swallowed hard. "Where are you?" "I'll explain everything soon," he said urgently. "Go to the old cabin by Miller's Creek. It's where we spent our first anniversary. Remember?" Tears filled my eyes. "Yes." "Go there. Don't trust anyone, especially Mara." The line went dead. I grabbed my bag and ran to the car. As I pulled out of the motel parking lot, a black SUV turned onto the same road behind me. They were close, and this time I wasn't sure if I could outrun them. The road to Miller's Creek was empty, except for the sound of rain on the windshield. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Every shadow looked like a threat. Daniel and I had spent our first anniversary at that cabin, tucked away between pine trees, overlooking a quiet lake. Back then, it had felt like paradise. Now, it felt like a trap. I reached the cabin just before nightfall. Everything looked the same, right down to the chipped white fence Daniel had promised to fix. I hesitated before stepping inside. Dust covered the furniture. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling beams. No sign of life. "Daniel?" I whispered. Silence. Then a faint creak from upstairs. I froze. Slowly I climbed the staircase, heart hammering in my chest. The sound came from the bedroom. I pushed the door open and gasped. A man stood by the window, back turned. "Daniel?" He turned slowly. His hair was longer, his beard rough, his face thinner. But it was him. "Leah." His voice cracked. "You found me." I rushed to him, tears flooding my eyes. I threw my arms around him, feeling his heartbeat. "You're alive." I thought I was losing my mind. He held me tight, but there was a heaviness in his embrace. "I wanted to tell you sooner, but it was too dangerous. They would have used you to find me." I pulled back, searching his eyes. "Daniel, what's happening? Who are these people?" He sighed. "TechCore isn't what it seems. They're part of a global surveillance ring called Aegis. They're manipulating data, creating digital identities, rewriting histories. I found proof, and they tried to erase me." "Why fake your death?" I whispered. "To keep you safe," he said. "But they must have realized you had the USB. That means they'll never stop." I touched his face. Then we end this. Together. He looked at me with something like pride and fear. You've always been braver than you think. Outside, headlights cut through the darkness. Daniel's face went pale. They found us. The next few minutes were chaos. Daniel grabbed my hand and yanked me toward the back door. How did they find us so fast? I shouted. They're tracking everything. Cars, cameras, maybe even your ID, he said breathlessly. We need to move. Gunshots shattered the windows. We ducked behind the kitchen counter, the cabin filled with smoke as bullets tore through the walls. Daniel, what do we do? He pulled something from his jacket, a small flash drive identical to mine. If they get this, everything's over. It contains the decryption key for Aegis. With it, we can expose them. I looked at the front of the house. Flames licked the window frames. Daniel, the fire. Go, he shouted. We crawled out through the back, choking on smoke. The night air was sharp and cold. Daniel pushed me toward the car hidden under the trees. Drive to the next town. Wait for me at the old diner on Route 11. I'm not leaving you. He cupped my face, eyes fierce. Leah, please. If we both die, everything dies with us. Before I could argue, an explosion ripped through the cabin. The blast threw me backward, knocking me into the mud. I screamed his name, but all I saw was fire. Hands grabbed me from behind, rough, gloved. I twisted, kicking, clawing. A man in tactical gear tried to restrain me. Then another figure appeared, Mara. My blood ran cold. Hello, sister-in-law, she said with a chilling smile. You've been busy. They tied me to a chair in what looked like an abandoned factory. The air reeked of rust and oil. Mara circled me like a predator. Where is it? She asked. Where's what? I rasped. She smirked. The files. Daniel's little treasure. Don't play dumb, Leah. My jaw tightened. He's dead. Her eyes flickered with something. Regret? No. Satisfaction. If he's dead, that's his problem. You're the one holding what we need. She leaned close. You think you knew him, didn't you? Sweet Daniel, always the hero, but he wasn't who he said he was. I frowned. What are you talking about? Daniel worked for Aegis before he turned on them. He was one of their top engineers. He didn't expose them because he cared about the truth. He did it because they double-crossed him. No, I whispered. You're lying. She smiled cruelly. He faked his death long before the crash, Leah. You were just his cover, his perfect grieving widow. Her words cut like glass, but I saw something in her eyes. Jealousy, maybe even hate. You loved him, I said softly. Mara's face hardened. I warned him not to get you involved. Before she could continue, the factory door burst open. A flashbang exploded, blinding us both. When my vision cleared, the men were gone, and Daniel was standing there, breathing hard, a pistol in hand. He rushed to me, cutting the ropes. Are you okay? I stared at him, trembling. Tell me it's not true, Daniel. Tell me she's lying. His silence said everything. We drove in silence through the night. My mind replayed Mara's words on a loop. Finally, I broke the silence. You worked for them. Daniel's hands tightened on the wheel. Yes, but I didn't know what Aegis really was when I joined. I thought we were building cybersecurity systems. Then I found out they were weaponizing data, using people's personal histories to blackmail governments and control elections. So you turned on them? He nodded. I downloaded evidence to expose them. That's what's on the drives. But when they found out, I had to disappear. I staged my death and hoped you'd be safe. I shook my head, tears burning my eyes. You lied to me for years. I was trying to protect you by making me your alibi, by letting me bury an empty coffin. His jaw clenched, guilt etched in every line of his face. Leah, I'm sorry. I looked away. You should be. We stopped at an overlook by the cliffs. The moon hung low, reflecting off the waves below. Daniel handed me his drive. If I don't make it, promise me you'll finish this. Send it to the journalist named Harper Lee. She's been investigating Aegis for years. She'll know what to do. I took the drive, my hands shaking. And you? He smiled sadly. I've already made too many enemies. Before I could answer, headlights appeared behind us. Several cars closing in fast. Daniel's expression hardened. Run, Leah. I'm not leaving you again. He looked at me one last time. Then we fight. The cars skidded to a halt, men jumping out with flashlights and weapons drawn. Daniel pulled me behind a rock formation. Go for the trail, he whispered. If we're separated, keep running until you reach the coast road. Bullets cracked through the air. We ran, ducking low as sparks flew from the rocks around us. Daniel fired back, covering me as I sprinted toward the edge of the cliff. A shout rang out. One of the men had flanked us. Daniel turned, firing. The man fell, but another bullet hit Daniel's shoulder, spinning him backward. Daniel, I screamed. He stumbled, but waved me off. Go! I grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the edge. The drop below was steep, the ocean raging beneath. We'll never survive that, I cried. It's better than what they'll do to us. He grinned through the pain. Trust me, one last time. And before I could answer, he pulled me with him into the cold, black sea. Cold, that's the first thing I remember. Cold that cut through flesh, through thought, through fear. The waves swallowed us whole, tossing us like rag dolls. I reached out blindly, searching for Daniel's hand, but there was only water and darkness. The current pulled me under, my lungs burning. I fought toward the surface, gasping for air, but the sea showed no mercy. Just as my vision blurred, I felt something. Strong fingers gripping my arm, pulling me upward. When I broke through the waves, I coughed violently, clinging to driftwood. The moonlight shimmered on the water, and then I saw him. Daniel, struggling nearby, one arm limp from the bullet wound. Hold on, I screamed. But before he could reach me, a wave crashed between us. When it cleared, he was gone. I screamed his name until my voice broke, until there was nothing left but the roar of the ocean. Hours later, I washed up on shore, shivering, half-conscious. Fishermen found me at dawn, wrapped me in blankets, and called the police. I gave them a false name. Anna. Always Anna. At the hospital, I lay there listening to the steady beep of machines. Every sound made me flinch. Every shadow felt like someone watching. Then a nurse entered, holding a clipboard. You had a lucky escape, she said kindly. I tried to smile, but inside I felt hollow, because Daniel was gone again. But this time, I couldn't grieve. Not yet. Because if he was alive before, maybe he still was. And if Aegis thought I was dead too, that was my one advantage. I had Daniel's drive, the evidence, and a promise to keep. I had to find Harper Lee and finish what he started. 2 weeks later, I stood outside a small coffee shop in Boston. I'd followed every lead, every alias Daniel had left me, and they all pointed to one person, investigative journalist Harper Lee. She was known for exposing corporate corruption, the kind of woman who had more enemies than friends. Inside, she sat in a corner booth, typing furiously on her laptop. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, calm but watchful. I approached carefully. "Miss Lee?" She looked up, studying me. "You're Leah Daniels." My heart skipped. "How do you—" "I've been expecting you," she interrupted. "Daniel reached out months ago, told me if anything happened, you'd come." I sat down, fighting back tears. "He's dead." Her expression softened. "Maybe. But he left behind something the world needs to see." I slid the USB across the table. "This is everything." She plugged it into her laptop. As the files loaded, her face grew pale. "My God, these are classified communications between tech core executives and military contractors. If this is real, it's the biggest data scandal in history." "It's real," I said quietly. "People have died for it." She looked up. "Then we'll make sure it wasn't for nothing." But before we could continue, her phone buzzed. She answered and froze. "What is it?" I asked. Her eyes darted toward the window. "We have to leave." Now, outside, two men in suits were approaching the cafe, scanning faces. I grabbed the USB. "This never ends, does it?" She gave me a grim smile. "Truth never does." We fled through the back door, sprinting down the alley. The sound of footsteps echoed behind us. Harper led me into a narrow side street where her car was waiting. "They'll trace the USB signal," she said, throwing it into a lead-lined bag. "We need to reach a secure location." "Where?" "Somewhere they won't expect." As we sped through the city, I stared out the window. My reflection looked like a stranger, someone harder, colder. "Do you think Daniel's still alive?" I asked quietly. Harper hesitated. "If anyone could fake his death twice, it's him. But you need to prepare yourself for the truth, Leah. Sometimes the people we love the most aren't the people we think they are." Before I could reply, headlights appeared in the rearview mirror. A black SUV, then another. "They found us," I whispered. Harper swore under her breath and slammed the accelerator. Tires screeched as we weaved through traffic. Bullets shattered the back window. "Hold on," she shouted. She veered sharply onto a bridge, then turned down an unfinished exit ramp. The SUV followed, closing fast. "Give me the drive," she yelled. "What?" "They want it, not you." I shook my head. Daniel trusted me. "Then trust me now." She grabbed the steering wheel and yanked hard. The car spun out, crashing into a barrier. My head hit the window. Everything went black. When I woke up, Harper and the car were gone, and so was the drive. I stumbled down the road, dazed, my clothes torn and soaked. The police sirens in the distance grew louder, but I didn't stop. Harper had betrayed me, or maybe she had saved herself. I couldn't tell anymore. At a gas station, I used a payphone to call the only number Daniel had ever told me to trust. A contact saved under E. A man answered. "You shouldn't be calling this line." "I need help." "I'm Leah." Silence. Then, "Where are you?" An hour later, a van pulled up. A tall man in a trench coat stepped out. Mid-40s, military bearing. "I'm Ethan." Daniel and I worked together. I didn't know whether to hug him or run. He drove us to a secluded farmhouse. Daniel believed Aegis had infiltrated every level of government, he explained. He thought Harper could expose it, but she might have been compromised. I clenched my fists. So he trusted the wrong person again. Ethan looked at me. "He trusted you most of all." He handed me a tablet. I found something in their system, a recent video log. I think you need to see it. He pressed play. Daniel appeared on the screen, alive, tired, but speaking directly to the camera. If you're watching this, Leah, I failed to protect you. I don't know how this ends, but I need you to remember the truth isn't just about exposing them. It's about who we become when we face it. Trust your heart. I covered my mouth, tears streaming down. Ethan lowered his voice. He recorded this 3 days ago. My eyes widened. 3 days? Then, he's still alive. Ethan and I spent the night studying Daniel's video logs. He had been moving constantly, leaving breadcrumbs for me. Each file contained coordinates, encrypted messages, warnings. He's leading you somewhere, Ethan said. But why? I stared at the map. The coordinates pointed to one final location, an old tech core facility in Nevada. Their headquarters, I whispered. Ethan frowned. That's a death trap. Then that's where I'll find him. He grabbed my arm. Leah, listen. If he's alive, he's running out of time. But if he's not, then this could be their way of luring you in. I met his eyes. I've been running from ghosts for too long. I need the truth, even if it kills me. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. Then I'm coming with you. The next morning, we set out before dawn, the desert stretching endlessly before us. As we neared the facility, something in my chest shifted, a mix of dread and hope. Daniel had always said truth demanded sacrifice, but I never realized the sacrifice might be him. The Nevada desert stretched endlessly, a barren expanse under a burning sun. Ethan's old Jeep kicked up dust as we approached the massive concrete structure rising from the sand, the old TechCore data center. According to Daniel's logs, this was their first test site for Project Aegis. Ethan said, it's been off-grid for years. The closer we got, the more unease coiled in my stomach. The place felt alive, humming faintly with the ghost of old machinery. Inside, the air was cool, metallic. Rows of abandoned servers stood like silent tombstones. I trailed my hand along a console. Dust coated my fingers, but the faint glow of a blinking light betrayed that power still ran somewhere deep below. We descended a staircase that led to a heavy steel door marked Restricted. Ethan typed a code into the keypad. Somehow it worked. Daniel must have given me old credentials, he said. The door opened, and there he was. Daniel stood at the far end of the room, thinner, gaunter, but alive. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. I wanted to run to him, but something in his eyes stopped me. They were different, colder, calculating. Leah, he said softly, you shouldn't have come. Ethan raised his gun. You said we'd find him, not... Put it down, Daniel said calmly. You have no idea what's at stake. I stared between them. Daniel, what is this place? What have you done? He took a breath. I wasn't just exposing Aegis. I was rebuilding it. My heart stopped. What? He looked almost sorrowful. Aegis isn't just corruption, Leah. It's control. The world needs control. And if I didn't take it, someone worse would. Ethan stepped forward. You're not saving the world. You're enslaving it. Daniel's gaze hardened. You think freedom is what people want? They destroy everything they touch. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The man I loved, the man I thought died for truth, had become the very thing he'd fought against. I whispered, Who are you? He hesitated. Someone who stopped believing that truth sets you free. Ethan kept his gun trained on Daniel. You're coming with us. Daniel shook his head. You won't make it out alive if you try. He turned to me. Leah, I didn't lie about everything. I did love you. But the world we dreamed of, it doesn't exist anymore. You saw what Aegis could do. The only way to protect humanity is to control it. I felt tears sting my eyes. You're justifying tyranny. He took a step closer. I'm justifying survival. Ethan grabbed my arm. We have to go. But Daniel's voice stopped me. You have the decryption key, don't you? Give it to me, Leah. Together we can finish what I started. Build something new. Safe. Perfect. I looked into his eyes, searching for the man who once held my heart. The one who stayed up all night, fixing broken things, just because he couldn't stand imperfection. And suddenly I realized he hadn't changed. He was still trying to fix the world. He just forgot it wasn't his to fix. I shook my head. You can't fix the world by breaking people. His jaw clenched. Then you'll die for your idealism. He reached for his gun, and Ethan fired first. The sound echoed through the room. Daniel staggered, clutching his side. His eyes met mine, not with anger, but sadness. I warned you, he whispered. Sirens blared, red lights flashed. The base was going into lockdown. Ethan grabbed my hand. We have to move, now. But I couldn't stop looking back. Daniel had fallen to his knees, blood pooling beneath him, but his lips still moved, typing something into the console before he collapsed. Whatever he had started wasn't over. We ran through the corridors as alarms wailed, the building shaking from internal explosions. What did he do? I shouted. Ethan's voice was grim. He triggered an upload. He's sending the Aegis program live. We reached the control room. The main terminal flickered, data pouring through encrypted lines faster than I could read. He's connecting it to the global network, Ethan said. Once it's out, no one can stop it. I looked at the console. Daniel's access remained open, his final code glowing on the screen. Beneath it, a single prompt blinked. Enter final authorization key. Ethan turned to me. That's you. He built it, so only your biometric signature can stop it. My hands shook as I approached. If I do this, will it destroy everything? Yes, including the evidence. Everything he risked, I swallowed hard. And if I don't, then Aegis controls the world within hours. I closed my eyes. Daniel's words echoed in my head. Truth isn't just about exposing them. It's about who we become when we face it. I placed my hand on the sensor. Confirm override? Yes. The screens flashed white, then black. The hum of servers went silent. Ethan exhaled. You did it. I looked back at Daniel's body, lying motionless by the console. No, I whispered. We did. The system powered down completely. The facility went dark. For the first time in months, there was silence. But deep inside, I knew. Silence didn't mean peace. Weeks later, the world began to uncover fragments of what had happened. Anonymous data leaks revealed Aegis's crimes, TechCore's corruption, and Daniel's name. Half hero, half villain. Ethan disappeared. The government denied everything. And me, I vanished too. The woman the world thought dead, twice, finally let herself be. I rented a small cottage by the ocean, far from the noise. Sometimes I'd sit by the shore at night, listening to the waves. They reminded me of that night. The night the sea took him and gave him back, changed. One evening, a letter arrived. No return address. Just my name. Inside was a single sentence, written in Daniel's handwriting. You chose humanity over perfection. That's why you'll survive. My hands trembled. There was no way he could have survived the explosion. And yet, the letter was recent. Was he out there, watching? Or was it something he'd set in motion long ago? I didn't know, but for the first time, I didn't need to. Some truths are too heavy to carry forever. So I let the letter fall into the waves, and I whispered goodbye. Years passed. I started teaching technology ethics at a local college, a quiet life far from the chaos. My students often debated the same question that haunted Daniel. Does humanity need control to survive? Every time, I told them the same thing. Control isn't peace. It's silence, and silence isn't the same as safety. They'd nod thoughtfully, never knowing the story behind my words. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind howled through the trees, I'd hear his voice. Trust no one. And I'd smile sadly, because I finally understood what he meant. He wasn't warning me about people. He was warning me about blind faith in systems, in saviors, in perfection. The world doesn't need perfect heroes. It needs imperfect people brave enough to keep trying, even when the truth breaks them. On the anniversary of his funeral, I visited his grave for the first time in years. The rain fell softly, just like that day. I placed a single white rose on the headstone and whispered, I forgive you. Then I walked away. Because forgiveness, I realized, was the truest form of freedom. And Daniel was right about one thing. The truth had changed me. But not into a weapon, into someone finally alive. Moral: sometimes the people we love carry the darkest secrets, not because they're evil, but because they're broken. And sometimes love isn't about saving them. It's about saving the part of yourself that still believes in good.